Hello, my name is Christina Mitich, and my capstone paper is on assessing the quarterback leadership styles, a comparative analysis of the Cleveland Brown quarterbacks. Cleveland has not been the most successful team in the NFL, which is the main reason the Browns were chosen as the main study for this paper. Also, to attempt to identify the type of leader that the Browns need in order to succeed, and is their current starting quarterback, Brian Hoyer, that type of leader. First, I will begin by discussing 4 leadership styles, then go into talking about previous and current quarterbacks for the Browns, and offer some limitations and recommendations for the future. In 1938, Lewin and Lippitt were the first to look at leadership styles. They did a study focusing on authoritarian and democratic leaders. They first defined an authoritarian leader as a person that believes they are the strongest leader. They are impersonal and sometimes aggressive and believe that they are the ones in control. They define a democratic leader as one that encourages others, gives praise and criticism often. Moving on to the 2 other types of styles, Burns first researched transactional and transformational leadership in 1978, then Bass continued the research in 1985. Transactional leaders communicate with rewards. When something is done right, a reward is given. This is often used in lower levels of management. Transformational leaders are more concerned about motivating others. They inspire rather than give rewards when something is done correctly. This is often more used with experienced athletes. The quarterback is the most interesting and complex position on the team. Their leadership is what influences the team, which is why the topic is so important to study. Moving on, looking at the Cleveland Browns, they began their first season in 1946, and then moved to the NFL in 1950. They dominated when they first entered the NFL by appearing 6 straight seasons in the championship game. In 1950, 1954, 55, and then again in 64, they won the league crown. Unfortunately, in 1995, it was announced that the Cleveland Browns franchise would move to Baltimore for the 1996 season. However, like it was promised, a new team returned in '99, keeping the same name and colors for the Cleveland Browns. Before the move, the Browns did have some exceptional leaders as quarterbacks on the team: Otto Graham, Frank Ryan, Brian Sipe, and Bernie Kosar, to name a few. Since the return in '99, the Cleveland Browns have not been so lucky with quarterbacks until this season with Brian Hoyer, who is bringing some excitement to the city again. Otto Graham was quarterback for the Browns from 46 to 55 and led the team to the NFL championships in 50, 54, and 55. His overall record with the Cleveland Browns was 114 wins, 20 losses, and 4 ties. Many viewed him as an inspirational and remarkable athlete, and his jersey is one of the few of the Cleveland Browns that is retired. Frank Ryan and Brian Sipe are 2 other great quarterbacks that the Browns had throughout the 60s and the 70s. Then there was Bernie Kosar from 86 to 93. Kosar is probably one of the first names that come to mind when you hear the name the Cleveland Browns. He may not have been the most athletic player, but it is argued by many that he was the best leader the team ever had. While researching for the best leaders the Browns have ever had, Bernie Kosar's name was the first one to appear the most throughout blogs, articles, and websites. A short qualitative study was done to analyze what the public thinks about Bernie Kosar as a leader. An article on Kosar published in August 2014 on Sports on Earth was used for this study. There were 36 public comments left, and these were divided into 3 categories, showing positive leadership, negative leadership, or not relevant. 94.4% were positive, 2.8% were negative, and the other 2.8% were non-relevant. One comment stated, "He does have so much to offer. I heard him speak at a Browns backer dinner a few years ago and was so impressed with his demeanor, attitude, and thoughtful remarks." Comments that were left on this article were about his leadership and attitude, not about his ability to play the game. Brian Hoyer, or Hometown Hoyer, as Clevelanders like to call him, is the current starting quarterback for the Browns. He has started every game in the 2014 season. The record is 7-5, which is one of the best records that Cleveland has seen since their return in '99. Many people have even commented on, is Hoyer the best thing that the team has seen since 1999? Johnny Manziel has only appeared in 2 games so far, and he is the other current quarterback for the Browns. He's had very minimal playing time, however, he had an exceptional record as an NCAA quarterback. Considering Manziel's limited playing time and Hoyer's performance in the 2014 season, this brings me to Hypothesis 1 of the paper. Hypothesis 1 states that Brian Hoyer is the best leader and quarterback the Cleveland Browns have had since the team returned. His type of leadership styles are what the team needs. Like it was done for Kosar, a qualitative study was done for Hoyer. 2 articles were analyzed, one from Cleveland.com and one from Yahoo Sports. There were a total of 109 comments analyzed, however, 55 of these were irrelevant to Hoyer's leadership. Of the 54 comments that reflected Hoyer's leadership, 87% of the comments were positive, while 13% were negative. Hoyer is the best quarterback since Kozar in 1989. I know it's not saying much, but he is a hometown kid making good. And it sure looked like Hoyer has the attention, respect, and the support of his teammates are two of the comments that were left on these two articles. These comments and many others support hypothesis 1 of the paper. In addition, data was personally collected to gain some insight on who people believe is the best leader the team has had, than specifically looking at Hoyer and Manziel. In order to gain the perceptions of people, 2 polls were taken. These questions were specifically designed to ask respondents about the quarterback's leadership skills, not their ability to play the game. For both of the polls, the questions were posted on various social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. In addition, to gather more data, the 2 polls were asked at a local Cleveland bar during a Browns football game. Respondents were asked the questions and then had the decision on whether they would like to respond or not. There were 29 respondents for the first poll and 15 for the second. For the first poll, the 29 respondents were asked which Cleveland Browns quarterback, past or present, was or is the best leader the team has ever had. Kozar received 48% of the votes, Sipe with 21%, Otto Graham with 17%, then Manziel, Couch, and Hoyer each received a vote or 2. However, with the comments that were left on social media with these answers, it is unclear if the respondents were answering honestly or not. For the second poll, the 15 people were asked specifically between Brian Hoyer and Johnny Manziel, who do you believe is a better leader? 93% of the people stated Brian Hoyer, while 7% stated Johnny Manziel. However, this was very difficult for people to answer considering Johnny Manziel's little playing time. Throughout this paper, there were many limitations and some future recommendations that I can give. The first limitation was how the data was collected for the polls. Only those people who follow me on social media or happened to be at that local Cleveland bar on the day that I collected answers were able to answer. Ideally, for future reference, the best way to collect this data would be to stand outside of First Energy Stadium during a Browns football game. This would give you the most accurate answers. Secondly, the qualitative study done on Hoyer. The 2 articles that were used were following winning games that we've had this season. After his performance against the Buffalo Bills, people may be commenting differently. This would be an interesting study for the future, however, to compare people's comments and see if they only say positive things after wins and negative things after a loss. The last limitation is there is not enough information on Johnny Manziel to study his leadership styles. He is a rookie and has had very minimal playing time, so it is difficult to study his leadership as an NFL quarterback. For future recommendations, the study should be completed once both quarterbacks have had sufficient playing time. Another recommendation for the future would be to conduct a survey with those who personally work with the quarterbacks. A survey has been drafted that could be passed out to the players, coaches, and administration for the Cleveland Browns. The most accurate way to collect data about leadership styles is to survey and interview those who are directly affiliated with that person. In conclusion, leadership styles of NFL quarterbacks are essential to understand in order to understand the performance of the team as a whole. 4 leadership styles were looked at in this paper: authoritarian, democratic, transactional, and transformational. For the Cleveland Browns, in my opinion, the best type of leader would be a mixture of these 2, however, primarily transformational and democratic leadership. Transformational leaders are the leaders, again, that are inspiring, motivating, and they make their team better. They push their teams to the best of their ability, which is exactly what any team needs. Also, in football, you need teamwork and good sportsmanship, which are characteristics that reflect more of a democratic leader. Democratic leaders want to encourage one another rather than control one another. Overall, from research and data collected, Bernie Kosar seemed to be the best leader the Cleveland Browns have ever had. However, many are saying, is Brian Hoyer the next best thing since Bernie? From research collected and analyzed on Hoyer, this could be true. This is one of the best and most exciting seasons the team has had since Bernie Kosar was with the Browns. So further research would need to focus more on Brian Hoyer's leadership throughout the next few years and hoping that he decides to stay with the Cleveland Browns. Although the Browns are not the best team in the NFL and may not win a Super Bowl anytime soon, this is still the best season we've seen in a long time. There have been losses and hard times in the 2014 season, but there have also been a lot of wins and exciting moments. It is only fair to consider the possibility that Brian Hoyer's leadership has something to do with this. Thank you for listening.